us where you are, send in your questions. We're here to answer them. We'll start with Annette and then we'll go over to Chandrika, and Victoria will take some questions as we run through. So please don't be shy. Send your questions our way.
Okay, hello everybody, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon to hear about UCD's Masters and Graduate Diploma in Cultural Policy and Arts Management. So I'm going to pop some slides up here on the screen and walk you through the Graduate Diploma and the Masters Programme. The Graduate Diploma is a 2-year part-time course, and the Masters Programme is a 1-year full-time course. Our mission on the programme is to produce reflexive practitioners. That's people who can manage people and resources effectively on a day-to-day basis, and people who are aware of the environment in which the cultural manager works. In other words, the bigger picture. And I think that's particularly pertinent this afternoon, because while we've been in here talking about the various master's courses in UCD, the National Campaign for the Arts have just announced that the Minister for the Arts has awarded 20 million euros to the Arts Council in additional funding for the arts. And many of our graduates are associated with the National Campaign for the Arts. So they've been keeping the big picture about arts and culture in mind and have been campaigning tirelessly on behalf of the arts and cultural sector, which has been devastated by COVID-19 over the past months. So we're really proud that many of our graduates have been associated with the National Campaign for the Arts over the past number of years. What's our student profile like? Well, the age profile of our students is very broad and very different to most master's programs at UCD. The age profile ranges from about 22 to 60, and almost a third or a half of our students are international. We have students who have an interest in all of the art forms, the visual arts, theatre, music, dance, film, opera. And a lot of our students have some work experience, and that can be either from an internship or a part-time job. We also have students who have no background in the arts and perhaps are using the master's programme to transition into the arts for the first time. For example, we have a student on this year's programme who has retired from a long career working in finance and who's using the master's programme to build a practice himself. He's a retired accountant to help arts and cultural organisations better professionalise their financial affairs. So what's the learning experience going to be like on the master's programme? Well, you can expect to be challenged pretty deeply about culture and society, both by the faculty members on the course and by your own fellow students. What's the role of arts and culture in society? I think we've seen during the period of lockdown that the arts and culture have played a very strong role in entertaining us and keeping us nourished. So we're going to be asking you to think about what's going on a day-to-day level about the arts and society. You're going to be asked to reflect deeply on how you as an individual can develop your own management skills to be an effective leader or to be a team player in a cultural organisation. We emphasise on this master's programme that there's no one way to be a cultural leader or to be a manager. So we're going to be inviting you to reflect on your personal skills, on how you can develop them to be the best cultural leader or manager that you can be. There are 3 full-time faculty on this master's programme. There's myself, my colleague, Dr. Victoria Durrer, who's with us today, and Dr. Emily Mark Fitzgerald. And each of us brings something distinctive to the programme. We're all research active and we've published in our field, but before we became academics, we were all experienced arts and culture managers ourselves. So we bring both our research capacity, but also our experience in the field. In addition to the faculty, you're going to have lectures from members of Ireland's arts and cultural community. So we'll take the opportunity as we go through the programme to build in those networking opportunities for you so you can meet as many members of the arts and cultural community as possible. This is the longest running programme of its kind in Ireland. It was established in 1986 and we have over 750 alumni working in various places throughout the world, and we have another 27 students ready to graduate in 2020. So who are the alumni who've come through the programme? Orla McBride graduated in 1995, and until last year she was the director of the Arts Council. The Arts Council is the national agency for funding, developing and promoting the arts in Ireland, and as I just mentioned, is going to be in receipt of an additional 20 million euros to develop the arts further as a result of the devastation that's been caused by COVID-19 in Ireland. Cian O'Brien, a graduate from 2004, is currently the director of the Project Arts Centre, and this is a key cultural institution in Ireland. Jenny Jennings from 2004 is co-director and co-founder of This Is Pop Baby in Dublin. This has been a groundbreaking cultural institution in Ireland since its foundation. And Jeff Poulin, who graduated in 2013, was until last year the Arts Education Coordinator for Americans for the Arts, based in Washington, DC. But more broadly speaking, where do our graduates go and what do they do? If you look here on the right-hand side, you can see the number of organizations and the breadth of careers that our students go into after they graduate. Everything from becoming local authority arts officers to working for Google and Facebook, becoming managers in theatres, museums and galleries, and like Jenny Jennings, whom I mentioned a moment ago, starting their own companies. Graduates become event and project management coordinators. They work in corporate sponsorship, outreach and education, digital marketing and social media. This degree is very flexible. It's internationally recognized, and we don't produce one-size-fits-all managers. We encourage you to reflect on and focus in on your individual skills, and we enable you to refine and enhance those skills, better positioning you for employability once you've graduated. There are two strands to the Masters. One is management and the second is cultural policy. I teach management and cultural policy is taught by Victoria. The management strand consists of 4 subjects: management, law, finance, and marketing. Together, these 4 modules will equip you with the key skills you'll need to operate in the contemporary world of arts management, whether you want to start your own business or work in a national cultural institution or join a small performing arts organisation. The cultural policy strand consists of 2 modules: comparative cultural policy in the first trimester and Irish cultural policy in the second trimester. The modules will build your understanding of how something called culture has come to be defined, regulated, and even neglected by states, of how cultural policies become globally mobile, but equally require deep understanding of local contexts and what the role of the arts manager is within the cultural policy space. And then what we call application, bringing it together. You'll have a module on research methods. This guides you through how to research effectively. In the second trimester, you have a group project to create a business plan for a new arts or cultural venture. You'll draw on all of your management learning from the first trimester for this project, and graduates tell us that creating a business plan is probably one of the most useful assignments that they'll undertake on the course. It's a skill set that they return to again and again. You then go for an 8-week internship to an arts or cultural organisation of your choice. MA students spend the period over the summer writing a thesis. Graduate diploma students don't write the thesis, and this is the main difference between the 2 options. The thesis is an opportunity to do a deep dive into a question or something you're particularly interested in. We encourage students to do a research project that directly is related to their area of work or further study, and something that's really relevant to their career goals. Throughout the entire year, there's a constant process of meeting people, networking, and connecting through lectures where we bring people in to talk with you and to share their professional and personal stories. We encourage you to go to as many shows and performances across all art forms throughout your time on the programme. In summary, the MA is a 1-year programme, or the graduate diploma is a 2-year programme. There's a maximum of 30 years, well, not really, but 30 students on the programme. There are 2 strands, cultural policy and arts management. The key focus is on critical and practical content. It's a multidisciplinary qualification which is highly regarded among sectoral employees in Ireland and internationally. We have very strong links with Ireland's creative and cultural sectors, and the programme has been in existence since 1986, and we have an alumni of over 750 students, with 27 more coming on stream in 2020. We're an internationally recognised faculty. Thank you so much for listening, and we really look forward now to answering your questions.
Thank you very much for that oversight and detail on the course and the options available within the course. I might take this opportunity to bring Chandrika in just to hear her perspective, and I'm sure we'll get questions from people as we move through. Chandrika, thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, thank you very much for allowing me to take part. So I am based in Dublin, so I'm just off of Parnell Square, and I work for a theatre company that's just down the road as well. So it's pretty great.
Well, it's great to have you here. I suppose I might start by just asking you, so I understand you did your undergraduate in art history over in York and moved subsequently to UCD. Can you tell me a little bit about what that transition was like?
So I studied art history and English literature at the University of York in the UK. And actually, hearing a little bit about what you're talking about art history earlier, I also studied post-colonialism, and I very recently did an academic comedy set about how the Cabinets of Curiosities taught me about institutional racism. So that's an example of how art history can address that. So I did that, and then I wanted to move on to study art history further. So I did an art history MA at UCL, and then I was getting interested in working in arts management rather than academia. So I was looking into all the different places that you could study when you do art history. And I originally was going to do arts management in the UK, but because I'm a non-EU migrant, basically they closed down a lot of options. So I very luckily found the UCD course, which frankly now I realize it was a far better one than the one I had found in the first place. Because I actually called my mum earlier, and we talked about when I was applying, and she told me more than I remembered. And she told me that I was really excited about the cultural policy side, which I don't remember from now, but it's great that that mattered so much to me at the time, and it really has had an impact. And I really liked and still like the practical sides of things. So yeah, I think the transition was great, because it feels like when you study art history, people can be quite ignorant about the vast amounts of jobs you can get with an art history degree. They just assume you're going to be a teacher, but you can do literally anything with communications. Like no one said I can go into arts entrepreneurship. I did an internship in a museum, in an auction house, in a startup, in desktop publishing. Like there's so many options. So doing an arts management degree really honed that. And that's why I've ended up working in arts fundraising, because that's the business and arts sphere is where I really liked working. And then the cultural policy side really informed me about, I guess, the setting that I was going to start a career in, which is, within the Irish cultural policy framework, especially working in the public arts sector.
And talk to us about how you got your first opportunity.
In the UK, I was in a few different places, but when I was here, as part of the course, we all get to do a module, which is work experience, which was really useful. So because I was interested in sort of arts and business, they just went, well, business to arts obviously makes sense for you to go intern at. So Business to Arts is an organization here that kind of brokers relationships between the arts and the business world. It's a lot about arts fundraising and sponsorship. So I was their awards administrator. They have the Business to Arts Awards every year. So that was a really good experience, because it was a crash course in pretty much every sponsored arts project in the whole country. I was administrating them. So it was a really good way of understanding the sector, who are the people who do the projects, who's supporting what, and then also just learning how to run an award. I ended up as a totally different job making my own awards organization. So that helped me with that as well. So it was a really good thing to do. And also the work that I did in Business to Arts, I actually brought them with me in every job I did after that. And even the job I have right now. So I'm fundraising and marketing for Fishamble Theatre Company. And I got this job as part of a Business to Arts fundraising fellowship. So like the people that I interned with when I first started this degree, like I think 8 years ago, essentially are the reason I have my job today, years down the line. So there's a few different ways the degree has like had that kind of long-term impact, but that was definitely one of them.
Okay. And in terms of that internship, did you have to find that yourself, or was it the school that negotiated that for you?
That was a school. I think that was really good. That was when Pat Cooke was there. So we all just basically talked about what we've already done, and he made a recommendation based on our interest. So that was nice as well, especially as an international student. I would have had no clue where to start. So that guidance made a lot of sense, and he absolutely picked the right thing for me. So it was nice to be listened to and be guided that way. And, you know, why it just took the stress out of that situation altogether, and it paid off really well.
And so then from business to art to Fishamble, as you explained, through a business to art scheme. And how's it going for you now? What's it like to be working in the cut and thrust at Fishamble?
It's fantastic. I mean, and actually, I mean, there's a few places in between. Like, so actually, because of Mrs. Stewart's, I went into a career in fundraising at all, which I never knew was even an option when I studied art history the first time round. That, you know, no one really talks to you about these things. So I was a fundraiser for the Irish Architecture Foundation. And then because of more non-EU issues, I had to leave the arts. But essentially, I worked as a venue manager in the drinks industry, but encouraging arts organizations to create a program. And then I went back into the public sector with Fishamble, where I am now. Yeah, it's very interesting because I've now had the experience of both public and private. So all the things I learned in cultural policy, I'm very much living with now. And it's great to see how those things are made. And even what you just announced earlier, that there's going to be a new amount of funding for the arts, and that comes from the National Campaign from the Arts lobbying. And basically you see all the moving pieces in Ireland, at least, and you see how everything works. And then when you work in the public, well, in a publicly funded organization like me, we see the very real impact. So it's useful to see how that works.
Yeah, that's great. I have a couple of questions for you or for Victoria, Annette or Victoria. Do you still have places available for 2020? Are you still accepting applicants?
Yes, we are. We'd be delighted to hear from anybody who would like to apply to the programme.
Okay, that's great to hear. And then another question about the career opportunities in the tech sector in places like Facebook and Google. What sort of jobs are you talking about in that area?
We have a number of graduates, one of whom is an account director in Facebook, another is in recruitment in Amazon, and a third who is in event management in Google.
So very varied roles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just goes to show the variety of paths you can move towards through this MA. Okay, that's great. And Chandrika, you said just earlier you were chatting with your mom about this time in your life, and she remembered a lot more than you did, perhaps, which is often the case, I find. But I'm just wondering, looking back to when you were at this juncture in your life and choosing this master's, what advice would you give to yourself looking back, and to the people who are tuned in and listening to your experiences?
Don't be scared of studying things that you've not studied before. So I think when I saw that there was law and finance and business, things that I'd never studied as an art historian, that sometimes maybe it can be daunting, but it's the absolute opposite. At the time, I actually was more excited about that. So I think seeing the more varied practical aspects is basically just think about how these can be used in so many different ways. I did, as part of the course, they do an Arts Lives program where they get sort of the course brings in someone to talk about their career. So I got to do that last year. And a lot of what I was saying was, it's okay if you don't end up as an arts manager after this, because there's so much in this course that has transferable skills. And again, especially if you've done art history, if you liked art in school, people don't tell you enough about how useful those skills are. So I think going into this course, because you love arts management, you want to work in the arts, but knowing at the back of your mind that this is going to set you forward, like, for your life in general, is just kind of good to know and good to keep in mind, especially when things can get derailed. You know that you can do cash flow and you can do a business plan, and you know how to about how to do copyright law for websites. Like, you end up as a one-person business basically. So I would say, I guess, looking at this degree, if you want to work in arts management, that's fantastic, but it's okay if you just look at these skills and go, that's a really great way to learn these in general. Also fantastic.
That's very helpful advice. I have another question in around what does a usual week on this course look like? Or is there a usual week on this course?
Well, that's a really good question. And maybe Chandrika can come in on this also, because each trimester looks very different. In trimester 1, you do all of the management modules. So, and we try to keep the teaching in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and you'll have a lecture in the morning and the afternoon on each of those days. And the reason why we try and put most of the management modules in the first trimester is because in the second trimester, you're doing that business plan that I spoke about in the presentation. And you're also doing some of the cultural policy modules, and you're also doing some research methods. So we try and front load you with some of that, because the second trimester, then you're moving into doing business plan, and then you're beginning to think about your thesis, and then you're going out and you're doing your internship too. Chandrika, what does a typical module look like? What's it like, Chandrika? Let's hear from you on that.
Oh my God, it was a while ago. Basically, yeah, what you were saying exactly, like the trimesters are so different. So I'd say the first one is a lot of us getting to know the people in there. I am in constant communication with loads of people that I worked with. And I think a lot of it is learning about the other cultures. And I think having a third to a half of the module being international makes a really big difference, actually. So a lot of it is learning about each other and each other's countries. I remember when we studied cultural policy, that was a lot of the focus in the first round was really like, tell us about how it is in your country. And that was really useful. And yeah, then just like sort of getting down to the actual managerial things, getting to grips with, learning about finance and new subjects, and just most of us being in the same boat, really. And yeah, I think for me, it was different being an international student, I suppose, but a lot of it was just coming together and learning about these new things. And the second one, when it focuses a bit more about essays and more about thinking about the future, about management, about the practical aspects and how we're going to use them. So kind of starting to look forward a bit more. And the final one was, it was basically just an internship. So a lot of it was just on the ground working while we were doing our essays and our theses as well. So it was very busy. It was very varied. And I don't know if it's like this, but it seems to be the nature of the groups are always pretty fun as well. So a lot of it is just getting to know Ireland and Dublin, the city, through the people of the course and through the arts, which is kind of great. Like, especially a tip for anyone who ends up, doing the course, everyone is an intern in an arts organization. So you get to go to a lot of events when everyone works in all the arts. So, but that was fantastic. I saw so much more theater and like gigs from the person doing in music management, and we all got to be involved a little bit in each other's art sectors of interest. And I think that was very cool at the end, that we all came a little bit more well-rounded in terms of what the arts in Ireland has to offer, because all of us are working in different places. So there's a lot of knowledge exchange there that we still do up until today. So yeah, it was fun. It was good.
Someone here is asking about the managerial aspect of the course, Annette and Victoria, and how it sets you up for managerial careers outside of the arts.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the management modules that you do in trimester 1, marketing, law, finance, and management, I mean, each of those modules are transferable skills that can be taken into any kind of management career outside of the course. And many of our graduates have gone on, I mean, as I've said earlier, have gone into other careers afterwards. So they're very, very transferable skills. Also, what we're teaching in this course are skills overall that are transferable into other careers: creative thinking, reflexivity. And I mean, Tori, do you want to come in on this too? Because Tori, I should also say that Victoria's come onto the course for the first time this year, and has also been the program director of a similar course at Queen's University in Belfast. So you have much more experience, international experience of teaching on a program like this. So, I mean, tell us, Tori, what your experience has been of these kinds of skills being transferable outside of careers in arts and culture.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that they have been. having had myself students go on into some similar career paths that Annette mentioned for the UCD program in terms of Google and more broadly events management and things like that. But one of the things I wanted to highlight was myself having been an international student as well as an international staff member, and how the kind of perspective that you can bring as someone from the outside, but also what you can learn in exchanging with other students. And what I've noticed so far in engaging with the UCD program is that very shared space of exchange that is facilitated there, and how much an MA program can give you that space and time to reflect and connect, and how long standing those relationships can be. I see that one of the attendees has a question for Chandrika about managing the workload in terms of could you work part-time during your study? And I would like to jump in on that question, if that's okay, Chandrika, before handing it over to you and what your perspective is on that. I think one thing I would say about the space of an MA program is it's really about you know, your real personal sense of what you want to get out of it and what you can bring in it. So I think that part-time, full-time question is a very personal one. When you do a program part-time, it extends the opportunities that being in a base like UCD can provide you through the networks and the growth. And I think really that would be a real personal question about, you know, what time commitment you can bring to it. But maybe Chandrika, you can talk about how much time you think the course load took and what you found yourself having to balance in relation to that on a daily basis.
Well, I think from, I suppose, my perspective, because I'm a non-EU student, I've only ever had full-time degrees anyway. So this might not be for if anyone's doing part-time. But while I was here, because I was new to Ireland as well, I did pretty much just focus on the course. And it was only after the internship I started looking for more work, basically. I was doing some freelance writing, like journalist type stuff for like arts events. But I wouldn't really have the perspective of someone who's like also working and potentially also raising a family. That's, I know a lot of the people on the course were older and they did have jobs and they did have kids and families. And it was like, yeah, it is always going to be challenging, but the actual schedule was pretty decent in terms of like how much time during the week it takes. A lot of it was like us doing work ourselves, like the essays and the dissertation. So it was like full days of being on campus constantly. So I think that is a way that you could work around. I suppose that's the same with any MA, really. It's not too different. So I mean, it's one of those things where it is what you put into it. Like now I have a full-time job and I have like 5 freelance gigs on top of it. So it feels like that's something I've learned now as opposed to back when I was studying, when I was focusing more on the actual course. But I think it is possible, from seeing my friends who were working with families and did the course and came out of it with jobs. Pretty much most of us came out of it with jobs as well. So that was a part of what I suppose helps when you are trying to juggle so many things. At least if you can pick one of those things to be your internship, perhaps that helps even that out in the end, in the third section anyway.
I know one of the things as well is when, because we're in the middle of kind of developing the program for the next year, especially me, because I'm a new staff member, but we're looking at the assessment load across the program and how to ensure that there's not a heavy weight of 3 assessments due at the same time, and making sure there's a balance across for students in terms of thinking about work-life balance, I suppose.
Another question here on internships. Are they volunteer-based or are they paid?
They're not paid. The internships are not paid, no.
And can students self-source internships, or are they all supplied and arranged by UCD?
They're all self-sourced, and when I say that, it's because we are constantly introducing students on the programme to members of the arts and cultural community in Ireland through bringing the people in through lectures and networking. And so it's very rare that a student on our programme actually needs a formal introduction to anybody, but if they do, we have an extensive network throughout the Irish arts and cultural community, because we've been in existence since 1986. So it's very, very rare that we don't know somebody, but we will always help students. And one of the, let me just say the reason for that. We really want to support students in picking that phone up and making that call or dropping an email. And sometimes a student thinks that's a really difficult thing to do. But in this business, it's a people business, and you always have to pick the phone up and make a call. And I can see Chandrika kind of nodding in the corner here, but it's kind of part of what we do as arts managers. And it's very rare that an organization will say no to taking a student on an internship from our program, because it is very well regarded. But if there's ever a case where a student needs an introduction, we're there and we'll broker that introduction for them. Can I also just add, like, so I've brought 2 interns into wherever I've worked as well. So because this is the magic of the network. Now we have sleeper agents in all of the arts and cultural businesses and organizations throughout the country. So we just have to pick the call. I want to be known as an arts and cultural sleeper agent forever. But yeah, because there's so many graduates of the course, and if you had a good, experience yourself as an intern, then you know that, like, for me, it's really good to get a graduate from this course, because I'm like, I know you know how to do a marketing plan. I know you know how to do a business plan. I know exactly what you know. And that actually makes it really good for me as a manager, because we're like on the right level. And that's why I always make sure that we get an intern from the course in Fishamble. But I noticed that is definitely like across the board. And I know for us, someone else recommended our intern last time because she already had experience. But the most recent year, I emailed into the course saying it was so good last year, I definitely want another one this year. So send me whoever does theater and like this kind of work environment. So I think there's so many ways that you'll be fine. You'll find somewhere good. And it is very personal and case by case. And like, there's a lot of thought that goes into helping people get the right place to work. Also, just to add on to that sometimes students prefer to undertake an internship in their country of origin. They want to go back. And that's absolutely fine too. So we'll work with whatever art form area you're interested in, or whatever country you want to be in. That's absolutely fine with us. We'll negotiate within whatever parameter you want to work within.
Okay, that's great. Well, listen, thank you all very much for joining us. Everyone who's gathered, hope that's been useful. Hope you've got answers to a lot of your questions. Please do continue to stay in touch, and you can email Annette with all of your questions, aclancy@ucd.ie.
That's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chandrika, for joining us. It's lovely to hear about all your wonderful experiences. And Victoria Durrer, thank you very much for sharing so generously all the elements around the course. So please do keep in touch and stay safe.